All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Equipped, Bruised, Tired podcast. It is myself, Bryce, and who else is here with me?
I'm Ryan.
Say hi, everybody.
I'm Garrett.
All right, cool. Great work, everybody. Today, we're going to sit down and chat with our first guest on the podcast, Rhaea friggin' Stinn. If you're listening to this podcast and you know what equipped lifting is, you likely know who Rhaea is. We'll give you just a quick rundown of who Rhaea is for maybe the one person who's not sure. I don't mean to single you out, but Rhaea has been competing since 2003. She's competed internationally 40 times. Currently holds 4 world records in both 72 and 84 kilo weight classes. Has set 33 world records throughout her career in both classic and equipped. Won sub-junior worlds, junior worlds, and open worlds equipped. 33 national championships across bench only and full powerlifting equipped classic. Has competed the last 5 world games. Might be one of the most competed at world games lifters of all time. And won the last 2 in the women's super heavyweight class. We spoke with Rhaea previously back in 2020 as one of our first guests for the OG Equipped Bruised Tired podcast. But, you know, it only feels right to include her based on the fact that she's continued to excel in the sport and just continue to be one of the greatest equipped powerlifters who's ever been around. Because she's been competing for so long, she's won now the 84 kg open equipped class for the last 6 years. Last 2 world games, like I said, and she's been since also inducted into the Canadian Powerlifting, North American Powerlifting, and International Powerlifting Hall of Fames. So without any further ado, we will send it over to our interview with the one and only Rhaea Stinn. We hope you enjoy.
All right. We are back this week with Rhaea Stinn, which some of you probably know is my wife. So this will be, well, I'll probably know all the answers to the questions, but that'll be fine. Not everyone will know the answers to the questions. So we'll try to not make this all about inside jokes and stuff like that. But Rhaea was also our second guest on the first round of this podcast series. So we felt it was important to bring her back since she's continued to be successful in lifting. Yeah, I think that's I think it's a good starting point for our guests. And Rhaea Stinn is a multi-time world champion, and I think we could start with a little bit of background. I think would probably be good. So Rhaea, we covered this in the first video, but if you haven't watched it, we'll cover a little bit here. So Rhaea, talk about how you kind of got into the sport. You started lifting when you were 14 years old, but how did you kind of get into the sport?
Yeah, I got into the sport because my brother had been doing it. He had competed for a couple of years. I think had done 1 nationals, and I was playing other sports at the time and knew that getting stronger should make me just a better athlete. So with some convincing of my dad, my brother took me to the gym with him, and at the time Jeff Butt was in Moose Jaw, so started training with him and did my first competition about a month later, my first nationals like 3 months later, and I've really been doing it ever since.
It seems very quick to do your first nationals 3 months into the sport. Did you feel like immense pressure by having that be such an early meet for you?
Not that I remember. The sport was very different at the time. Obviously, we didn't have the same like hoops that you had to jump through to get to nationals. You just to get the qualifying total, which I got at the first competition, and then nationals was in Winnipeg, so it was a drivable distance for us. And my brother was going anyway, so I think, yeah, it was just sort of a natural progression feeling at that time.
I have a follow-up question here. And I don't know who wrote this, but I think it might have been Garrett, but I'm not sure. Would you say you owe all of your success to him being your brother? And also, apparently, your brother didn't make him ask that. Do you owe all of your success to your brother, Ryan?
Yeah, I've tried to avoid using Ryan because it gets very confusing when both my brother and my husband have the same first name. Um, do I owe all of my success to my brother? Like, sure. I guess if he hadn't gotten into the sport, if he hadn't connected with Jeff, it's very unlikely that I would have found the sport. But I do think that I owe probably a lot of my success to him, and for him introducing me to it. I think I also have to give some credit to my dad, for forcing my brother to take me to the gym with him, because I don't think he was super keen on it. And then also, I remember calling my dad after school crying because I didn't want to go to the gym the first time that my brother wasn't going to be there. And I was just going to train with Jeff and the other people that were training at the time, just because I was still so intimidated. And my dad was basically like, suck it up, you're going, you're fine. And I went. And then also some credit would have to go to Jeff as well, for coaching me, I think the first like 6 years of the sport, from about 2003 to 2009, before he moved away back to Newfoundland. So obviously, through that time, and coaching wasn't just coaching, like it was training in person 3 to 5 days a week together. So I think sort of a combination of probably those three people. And then, yeah, my mom and family as well for just supporting me and providing me with the opportunity to be able to travel and compete in the sport.
So I'm feeling like I'm getting a little bit more insight into you as we talk here. You said your dad told you to suck it up, you'll be fine, or you're fine. I feel like this is the same advice you give to almost every single lifter that you talk to nowadays. I didn't realize that the root of that was coming from your father.
Like, that's probably not the terminology he used, but I do remember calling him from the school phone, because he didn't have a cell phone at that time, and being like, I don't want to go.
You're really aging yourself.
And yeah, I know. He was, yeah. He encouraged me to go.
So I'm wondering about that like very first time or like first period of time in lifting. Obviously, did you do your first meet equipped? Because that was all powerlifting was at that point, right? Like it was all equipped.
Yeah, that's all powerlifting was. So I think I did my first meet. I think I got knee wraps put on me for the first time at the meet.
Nice.
So I'd only been training like about a month at that time.
Okay.
I had gotten a weight set from my parents, like a little bench and like cement plates, for my grade 8 gift from my parents, because that's what I wanted at the time. But I don't recall using it all that much before I started going to the gym with Jeff. The first day of training with Jeff, I was trying to learn to squat and fell right on my butt. So it didn't go super well. And then, yeah, I think the first competition, I don't think I put on a bench shirt, or if I did, it was like a super loose. I'd never had it on before. And I think I remember Jeff wrapping my knees for the first time and just being like, okay. And then on every rep, sort of being like, okay, I'm going to do it a little bit tighter this one, a little bit tighter this one. And I was like, okay, like I didn't know any different at the time. So sure, let's go.
So you hadn't trained with knee wraps at all heading into that. It was just.
I don't think so, no.
And knee sleeves, were they?
No, they weren't really a thing.
Eh? Yeah.
Strong men wore them, but
yeah,
they weren't really a powerlifting thing.
So how was that like initial getting into equipment, right? Like you're pretty young at this point, you're just getting into lifting, and it's like, okay, now we're gonna do this thing that just like rips the crap out of your knees. Try that at your first competition. And then like obviously at some point, I'm guessing maybe between then and nationals, you got into some of the equipment, and like what was that like, and how did that not like push you away? You know what I mean? Like what made you want to stick around?
Well, like part of the thing is that that's all the powerlifting was. There was no option to, like, you could lift in just a singlet, obviously, but if you were going to go further in the sport, you had to put on gear, you had to put on wraps. So I don't really remember. I don't remember for the first time I put on a suit or bench shirt. But like my first nationals, I'm pretty certain I was in full gear for everything. So it obviously happened at some point in time there. Um, but I would just go back to like that's what it was. So in order to compete at nationals, like I looked at the national and international scene sort of when I first started, and that's what people were doing. So I think that's sort of the trajectory I took because that was the equipment that you used in the sport.
Hmm. Yeah. And there was no like initial like, oh man, this is super uncomfortable. What the heck am I doing?
Like probably, but I don't specifically remember that. I don't remember it being a barrier and me wanting to quit because of it.
right, right. And everybody around you was like, you're fine, just do it. It's like a lot of
Probably.
that kind of encouragement, maybe. Cool. Yeah, no, I was just wondering about like that kind of initial getting used to equipment. And I guess that was probably different back then because there was no other option, right? It was just equipped was powerlifting.
And equipment was different too, right? Like when you
Oh yeah.
started, you probably were wearing maybe like a Max DL or a hardcore squat suit, which is significantly stretchier, but you guys also wore them ridiculously tight. But it's not quite the same as the polyester is now.
Hmm.
No, it's different. Like, and I do remember a handful of times, but I couldn't tell you sort of what the time frame is. I feel like it was a few years into sport, but like being stuck in the suit in the change room at the gym we were training at, and like there was one door that you could sort of come to that was sort of in a corner. So I remember like being sort of stuck and having to come out and be like, "Hey, can somebody help me? Like I've been in here for 25 minutes trying to get this off," sort of thing. So, but that was just part of it.
And at this time, was it like a dedicated powerlifting gym, or was it like a local YMCA where a bunch of powerlifters trained, or what was the kind of, what was that like?
Yeah, it was just a local gym. Um, it wasn't powerlifting specific. We had sort of a corner that we took over when we were there.
Hmm.
I'm sure we annoyed some non-powerlifting people
We did.
by that.
We
Yeah.
There was messages in the men's room about it.
Yeah, it wasn't until about 2007, 2008, I want to say, that we got our own like powerlifting specific space.
So just to jump in there then, for the first 4 or 5 years, you were training just on commercial equipment, just a cage and a regular bar, or
A cage for sure, sometimes an angled rack. Um, I think we had at some point we got a combo rack in there, but it would be like 4 or 5 of us trying to train on it together, which works, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
I think now we're so spoiled in having a surplus of equipment and people are so used to this is my rack, I'm training on it alone. But there was countless times where there would be multiple people training a variety of weights on the same rack. So yeah, at some point we were allowed to bring a combo rack in there and sort of stored it there and used it. But I think we only had one ever in that facility.
And we had a bar.
that's
We had a bar hidden in the storage room that we pull out. And whoever was
Right.
lifting most that day would be able to use that bar. But it was like an Ivanko bar, so it wasn't even like a stiff bar nowadays.
It was just
And I-
slightly
the king
better
of the
than
bar.
commercial gym bar. Yeah.
And I distinctly remember having to like shoulder the weight up on a power cage to like change the rack height between me and Jeff squatting. And if you don't know, Jeff is, I would say, 4 inches shorter than me. So it wasn't an easy rack height adjustment.
So all that to say, you can get pretty strong on any equipment, and you don't need a special rack.
Oh, no one believes that. No, don't believe that at all. Buy MedXT equipment if you need stuff.
Yes, yes, actually buy MedXC.
Okay, never mind. I'm just joking. Just joking.
So I mean, I guess that kind of rolls into just obviously you've been competing in the sport for quite a while. When you got into the sport, did you set your eyes? I know you mentioned like looking at nationals and looking at internationals. Was that like an immediate thing you gravitated towards? Was that something that was on your radar and like aspiring to right out the gate? Or was it just like, I'm going to survive the next week and get to nationals? And then after nationals, you started eyeing that up?
Um, to be honest, I don't remember specifically. I know, like, at the time there wasn't as many females in the sport as there is now. So to look at other females in the sport, I had to sort of look nationally. Like there was only, I want to say like 2 or 3 competing in Saskatchewan. So I had to look nationally to see sort of what some other female results. And there definitely wasn't a lot of sub juniors lifting at that time. Like I want to say in the country, there was like maybe 2 or 3 sub junior girls each year. So it was nowhere near the size it is now. So I think I had to look sort of at a wider net to be able to compare myself and sort of see what I might be capable of. Obviously, like the first goal was to try and be like stronger than anybody in Canada was. And I feel like I set my sights on that fairly early, but definitely not like from the very start. That was probably like a couple of years in that I started to look at trying to, okay, can I be the best in Canada sort of thing.
And was there ever like a moment or a meet or a time where you kind of had that like, oh, maybe I am really good at this? Like maybe, was there any like specific dawning of realization that you would be the Canadian GOAT of powerlifting?
It's so hard to say because, again, the sport was so different. So from my first competition, I was setting provincial records. Were there any provincial records set at that time? No. So I was the first one doing it. And same thing at the national level. So I think if I recall my first nationals, like I set some national records. So I think with the beginning part of it, like looking back at my numbers, I wasn't that strong. But there wasn't a lot to compare to. So I was getting that sort of, I want to call it praise, but maybe that's not the right word, but I was getting that, hey, you're setting new national records, slowly sort of creeping up there. Mm-hmm. And still through most of high school, I was just doing it because I enjoyed it, but also to just be a better volleyball player, basketball player, a better athlete at that time. So yeah, I don't think there was a specific moment where I was like, hey, I'm really good at this. Like it was a slow progress over time, sort of setting new little goals and chipping away at them year after year.
So I'll piggyback off of that. You say you were using powerlifting as a way to like supplement other sports. When did you find there was a shift from using powerlifting to get better at volleyball and basketball and actually just like hard focusing on powerlifting? Or was that like an age out of sport or?
For me, that was like my first year of university. So around 2006, when I sort of had the opportunity to potentially play volleyball or track at the university level and decided not to. So decided to just start focusing only on powerlifting and sort of pursue that. So that was when I started to progress. That was when my bench started to progress. It was sort of one of the blips was when I stopped doing a bunch of other sports that were very one-sided and shoulder dominant. So that was, I think, when I first started to bench over 100. And again, in a shirt, which now you look at sub-junior girls and they're all benching raw well over 100, which is wild to see. So yeah, that was when I sort of started to focus more on powerlifting, was around 2006, first year in university.
And your first international, that was 2005 World Sub Junior and Juniors?
Correct. Yeah.
What was that experience like at that time, at that age, like going to your first World Championship? Because it looks like you had been competing for, a couple of years and did a lot of meets headed into that, number of nationals and that kind of stuff. What was making that transition to like, okay, now I'm an international competing athlete? Was there a big change for you, like training for that meet or competing at that meet or anything?
Like training for the meet, I think was basically the same, just continuing to progress. I think from the beginning, there had been thoughts that I would compete at Worlds. Like I remember in probably like the fall 2003, Master Worlds was hosted in Regina. And I wasn't allowed to skip school to go and watch, but I was able to go and watch after school. And I remember like Jeff taking me, because he was running the meet, and taking me into the warm-up room and being like, this is what a world's warm-up room is like. And that sort of thing. And I have that memory of sort of, I think, him trying to show me what was potentially possible down the road, and just to start getting me prepared for that, even though no worlds were necessarily on the radar at that time. And it was still another 2 years before I did my first worlds. So I think part of it for me was just to try and take it like any other meet, but also to have done things over my short career at that time to prepare me for this is what a setup might be like, and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And you competed as a sub junior. Was there more competition at that point? Like once you got to that level, like was it a bit more depth than you were used to in some of the nationals and things like that?
For sure. I think sub junior and junior, like every year it was becoming more and more competitive. My first year as a sub junior, I'd say my first year at Worlds as a sub junior in 2005 was probably when I faced like the first competition that I really had to face. I think at nationals, once there had been like I had somebody else in my weight class, but Worlds was the first time that I was competing amongst a group of women in my same age and weight class. So yeah, I think like it just was something that slowly increased over the years.
Yeah.
So I guess we can just look at how long you've actually been in the sport. So 23 years, that's quite a long time in a sport where, I mean, we see a pretty short turnover. I mean, like the average lifter now, you're looking at 3.5 years kind of in and out. In such a lengthy career, how do you keep going? Like, how do you get through those ups and downs of training, like the slog of you have nothing on the radar for 6 months, training isn't going so well, you don't want to do it. Like, what keeps you going through that?
I feel like Brian may have a different answer for this for me than I would. But I think so much of it at this point in time is just like habits and routine, that if I wasn't going to the gym and didn't have that in my life, like I don't know what it would be filled with. And then so much of it too is like I've built my work schedule around training. Obviously what I do for work with Inner Strength is tied into the sport. So if I was ever to stop competing, I'm not really sure what my life would look like. And it's been something that I've been working on sort of dealing with. Like a year ago, I was thinking that World Games would be my last competition. I was burnt out. I was just wanting to be done with that meet and probably be done. And so was working with some psychologists and like talking about what might it look like after I'm done competing, and coming to I guess, accepting that. But then World Games happened, and somehow there's another 4-year potential plan on my radar. So I think some of it though is just getting more and more used to the highs and lows over the years. Obviously, like 2008 to 2019, the goal was to win Worlds. 2008, I got a bit of like looking back on it, it was just a weird year at Worlds. I competed at Open Worlds because it was in Canada, but Russia wasn't there. And then the Ukrainian in my class bombed, and just some weird circumstances. I think somebody else bombed and I ended up second. I hadn't gone into that meet thinking I was going to be on the podium, but I think finishing second that year gave me the maybe false confidence, but confidence that, hey, you can win an Open World Championship. At that time, I hadn't won a sub-junior world championship either. I hadn't won a junior world championship. Sorry, I had won sub-junior worlds in 2006. But it gave me this sense of like, you can win Open Worlds. So I feel like 2008 to 2019, like my goal was to win Open Worlds. Did I think that it would take me 11 years? No. The cocky junior I was then thought I can do it in a couple of years, no problem. So I think that's part of it. But through that time, there's definitely like highs and lows. There was some classic focused times. And then 2019 till now, obviously I've won worlds a handful of times since then, which is something I never thought was possible. I figured I could win it once for sure and then sort of see what happened. But I think some of it has been like being accepting of this year training's not going as well, and I know I'm not going to hit PBs, but I'm still going to put my best foot forward and do the best that I can for the circumstances I'm dealing with right now. And being kinder with myself maybe in taking some competitions where I'm not pushing training as hard and I know I'm going to hit numbers below my PBs, but that's the reality. Sometimes it's checking the box. Sometimes it's just sort of going to worlds and seeing what happens, and being willing to accept that I might not win, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's a great mindset.
It's a lot of maturity in there that I think probably just takes a whole lot of time and exposure to develop, right? Like you kind of have to go through a lot of that. Oh man, this sucks. And then, okay, it got good again, to be able to reflect back and say like, okay, it sucks now, but as we've seen in this kind of cycle, it can be good again. We can have good training. We can make more progress, you know?
Yeah, there was definitely times there, like specifically like 2018, I was pushing my training. I switched to working with Blaine in like 2017, and that gave me some crazy progress that I didn't think was possible at that time in my career. And then 2018, I was still making crazy progress and was like, world is mine this year. Going into that meet, feeling super confident in my training, super confident in the total I was going to put up, I think it was like another 40 kilo PB total, and still finished third. And that one was hard to deal with mentally, because
Second. You finished second.
I finished second. Sorry. Okay. Thank you. But that one was hard to deal with mentally because I had put up such a great performance the year before. That total I think would have won or was like right around the first place total. And still I didn't have the opportunity to try and go for the win at that one. And I don't know if that was sort of a switch of like, I can have my best day possible and still it's not going to be the outcome that I want. I don't know if that year was sort of a big transition year for me. It's hard to say because then the next year I did win worlds. I went up to 84 thinking that would be my better shot to win, and that worked out. So yeah, I think that was probably a pretty big learning point. And obviously like there's highs and lows in every training block and every training cycle of feeling like this is going nowhere, being super pumped because things are feeling good. Like it's just working through those emotions, but still getting back in the gym the next day to try and get stronger.
Yeah. How have you found? Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, I think part of it is, I know most people have a training crew, but when you have a training crew, like you have this like accountability crew. So like, just because you really don't want to be there, you probably have to show up for someone else because someone else might be having a bench shirt on or squat suit on. So you got to show up to the gym anyway. So you might as well get back in the saddle and keep training, right? So I think that helps a lot to kind of keep you going back, because I do feel like I owe it to those people not to just skip out and not show up.
And I also know if I don't show up, they're going to be like, "Hey, where's Rhaea? What are you doing, Rhaea?" Like, why
And
aren't
then
you
I have to make up some sort of answer. She's sad because she didn't squat well or something.
Had a
Yeah, so
bad
it's just
bench
easier
day.
to show up.
Yeah. So you've like starting in
Sorry, Bryce, I
2011 or
cut you
so.
off
And
there.
no, you're good. That might have been about the sort of like advent of classic, but you've dabbled back and forth a decent bit between classic and equipped. How have you found that transition back and forth? Like, have you found any benefit to that? Have you found it like difficult to get back into equipment after a period of classic lifting, or is that something that you feel like you transition pretty flawlessly through, or seamlessly, I should say?
I feel like the transition periods between like the classic and equipped focus are terrible. because I feel like when I'm focused on equipped, like I'm not doing heavy raw stuff. I'm not focused on my raw training. Everything that I do is benefiting my weak points in equipment, which are very different than my weak points raw. So it's hard to transition back and forth. Like I've done it over the years, but like 2018 was probably the last time that I really tried to do both at the same time. I think around 2022, I did nationals classic and not equipped. So I wasn't focusing, I was just sort of letting classic have a bit of a focus there. But I feel like in the last 6 years, I haven't really put a lot of time and effort into my classic training because my goals have all been equipped related.
Yeah. And have you found it? Like, so you mentioned that, you know, going into the classic stuff is tough. Do you find it as hard to get back into equipment, or do you feel like that's an easier transition for you?
It's hard to get back into the equipment just in the sense that like weights are heavy. And
Yeah.
like I always have to like take a few weeks to slowly transition back up to close to max weight. But there's some people that we trained with over the years who can just like be out of equipment for 6 months or a year and then will go and do like 95% the first day back. And I just don't know how they load their system because I would be fried for an extended period of time if I were to do that. And I don't think I could physically like handle it and walk it out. So yeah, getting back in gear sucks. Like tight gear sucks. There's nothing to sugarcoat it. Like, my gear right now too hasn't been that tight lately, so it hasn't been maybe as awful. Or I've been kinder to myself and been putting on looser gear. Maybe not to Ryan's desire, but
I mean, it's for me, it's pros and cons because I have to help you in the gear if it's tight, but you don't lift as much if it's loose. So I mean, they both have their good points.
absolutely.
You also mentioned like the difference in your weak points in your training between classic and equipped. What do you think some of those differences are? Or like, what can you give us some insight into some of the things you might do in an equipped block to specifically target weak points, or where you feel those crop up, or some of the exercises that you lean on for that kind of stuff?
I just do whatever my coach tells me to do, and my coach right now is Ryan. So he handles all of that. What I find the biggest difference, like my raw squat, like since nationals this year, I've just been doing some raw stuff. I'm doing a raw meet next weekend just for fun. And like my squat in the bottom of a squat, just not to have that support of like the suit, the knee wraps, not to have that pop out of the bottom, has taken some time to sort of be trusting myself, I would say, in the bottom of a squat. Yeah, as far as what I do specifically to like help target my weak points, like I said, truthfully, I'll give Ryan some thoughts, but he is the one to tell me what to do, and I just follow my program as best I can.
Sounds like a pretty good system.
So I don't know if Ryan, you want to speak to what I'm focusing on for my weak spots right now.
I think we've just, especially this last, I mean, it's only been, 6 weeks in between nationals and this meet, so it hasn't been a long training cycle, but just trying to like build up some raw volume and raw capacity. So it's pretty straightforward, but just trying to handle a lot of sets sub-maximally even, just to kind of get used to those raw positions again. And then because she switches to conventional when lifting classic, we have to focus more on conventional work and then just like some stuff for that. So stuff like pin squats are good for her generally with raw, because she has a tendency to try to squat fast by loosening up her whole body. So if we instead do pin squats, it tries to encourage her to stay tight at the bottom. And then a lot of raw bench stuff, a lot of raw bench work. Because there's not a lot of translation between equip benching, especially Rhea's equip benching and her raw benching. So in
I
raw,
actually have to bend my elbows when I bench raw, so
I feel that.
Yeah, I kind of can we expand on that a little bit? Because I've heard about this like cue of you bench but you just don't bend your elbows. What can you break that down a little bit more for me
Like, I
and
think it's
maybe
pretty
for our viewers,
straightforward. You
but
just
like
touch your chest without bending your elbows.
but there's some like maybe some secret sauce there to the Rhaea Stinn equipped bench cueing. Like how would you teach somebody to try to do that? Like what does that look like?
So in the shirt, what I think about, like, and I'm not that I'm thinking about bending my elbows raw because the bar just comes down to your chest, right? But I'm thinking more when I'm benching in the shirt about like I'm benching a rainbow to touch my chest, and the bar is guiding that rather than like my elbows. So I'm not necessarily thinking of like tucking my elbows. If anything, I'm thinking about like keeping my elbows under the bar so that the bar doesn't outrun where my elbows are, or
Mhm.
like my wrist doesn't outrun that. And sort of it results in the bar having obviously more,
A lying front raise, basically.
in a way, yeah. Like that's how I've had that movement when I was working with Blaine. What was it called, Ryan?
Like a low touch.
Low touch, belly button touch bench press
Yeah.
or something, where like the goal of it was to touch my stomach but not bend my elbow. So basically it was a lying front raise. And I think that's sort of, not that I'm thinking about that when I'm doing an equip session. But that's where like my don't bend your elbows to touch your chest comes from, because I'm touching obviously lower and I'm thinking about sort of letting the bar arc down and then pressing, but keeping my elbows under the bar versus thinking about like bending my elbows to touch my chest.
Right.
There's so much more horizontal movement that it allows for the elbow to bend less.
Interesting.
And
So when
realize
you're
it
doing
does have to do with the fact that her arms are a lot shorter than yours, Bryce.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's cheating. But uh, um, what was I gonna say? So when you're doing the like lying front raise as like an assistance movement, are you doing that in the shirt? Are you doing that raw or
Just raw.
okay?
And like I was barely using any weight. Like I
Yeah, I
think I
feel
was
like I
doing like maybe
like
40
the bar
kilos.
for me probably.
Yeah. Like I know Shane Martin was doing it at some point too, and was using like 150 kilos or something crazy like that. And it didn't make any sense to me because I'm like, I know you're stronger than me, but relatively, like you should not be using that much weight. But yeah, it wasn't heavy. It was just trying to get that cue of like sort of pulling the bar down as I'm benching.
I mean, I was only doing 50 kilos. So,
Yeah.
There's that.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Shane,
remember the
same.
exact numbers Shane was doing, but it was a lot.
Something silly.
Yeah. So, sorry, let me go here. With having accomplished so much, uh, what are you looking for, like goals wise, in the coming years? Like, what what is on the horizon? I know you mentioned you finished up the World Games, and then immediately it's a World Games cycle. Is like that. The next big goal is World Games, and everything kind of builds to that. Is there anything you want to check off on your list along the way?
So obviously, like, yeah, World Games, the potential of another World Games to me is there. I'm also at the point though, like I've accepted that there may be a point in time where either my body won't allow me to do it anymore, or mentally I'm just like, this isn't doing anything for me. I need to pivot to something else. Um, so to me, it's still just one meet at a time, even though there's the potential of the World Games 2029. Um, I guess closer to that, hitting 700 at Worlds in the fall felt huge for me. And it felt like something that my training leading into Worlds didn't dictate me hitting a PB total in 700. I didn't think that that was going to be an option. Ryan's looking at me like, what do you mean? But like a month out from Worlds last year, I couldn't squat. Like I couldn't do a body weight squat. Um, something was going on in my knee and I just would be stuck there and that was it. I could do like a quarter squat and that was all. So I truthfully, like a month out, was like, maybe I will do a token squat. Hopefully I can get to depth with 25 kilos and then try and push bench and see what happens there. So, but hitting that 700, the world record total at 84 is 705, 704 and a half, somewhere in that range.
704 and a half.
I think it's 704 and a half. Yeah. So I would need to do 705. So that's sort of the next goal. If like sort of, I'm looking at North Americans this summer, because North Americans is sort of a lower pressure meet, especially this year, because it's not a World Games qualifier. I'm hoping that training will indicate that I can take maybe some bigger jumps to take a swing at that world record total. And then, yeah, so that's sort of the biggest goal right now, is getting my body to feel healthy enough to be able to hopefully achieve that this summer. Obviously, if I don't hit it there, then the goals pivot and potentially we look at Commonwealths or Open Worlds to try and achieve that there. But that's sort of the next big goal. Obviously, I think it would be really cool to have a shot at benching the most a female has in the IPF. Obviously, I've got a bit of ways to go, but the way my bench was feeling at Open Worlds last fall, it would have been nice to be able to swing at it there, hindsight. But that's sort of the great but terrible thing about the sport, is that looking back, you can always be like, oh, I should have done this, or we should have changed this opportunity there. But yeah, sort of still small goals. My squat hasn't been great in a lot of years, it feels like. It's been okay, but I haven't made a lot of progress there. So I would like to squat 260 plus before I'm done. Pulling 225 would be cool. My deadlift all of a sudden last year spurred on a little bit. And that's where, like, I've had so many competitions between where I haven't necessarily hit a personal best in anything, or so many years between like hitting personal best totals, that sometimes I think, like, you talk to other lifters and they're like, oh, I had a not great day, and you're like, well, what did you total? And they're like, oh, it was 12 and a half better than my last competition. And you're like, why aren't you happy? Because, like, once I've been in it for this long, like, I worked so hard and I'll be super pumped for like a 0.5 kilo personal best. And when you break it down to the number of sessions and the number of hours that you've put into it, it's like, you shouldn't do that, because then you're like, I put a lot of work into this for this 0.5.
Terrible return on investment.
It is. It's rough. But yeah, I think just keep chipping away and see what's possible. I've had the idea in my head for a little while that I'd like to take a shot at making another Open Classic team at some point in time. It's been a long time since I've competed at Open Classic Worlds. My last one was, I think, 2018. So that's sort of on the radar, but it's tough because I feel like my training has to pivot so much for Classic. And obviously the competition in Canada in Classic is huge. So I would need to bring my absolute best day to have a shot at that even. So that's sort of on the radar, but it's not my primary goal. So I haven't fully committed to it.
Oh, that's exciting.
Quick opinion question. Straps down work. Does it suck? There's one correct answer.
I'm no longer allowed to do it.
Oh.
Is that the correct answer?
I don't know. That was not what I expected. That was not one of the two answers I had.
I love strap down work. I feel like it hits the back differently, and just you can, like, it forces you to hold your upper back position so much differently than with straps up or than with raw. But now multiple times I've tweaked my back doing straps down work. And for a while it was like, well, maybe it's just not a coincidence, but it's happened too many times now. So I think we have officially decided that I'm no longer allowed to do it.
Yeah. Was it before World Games or Worlds? I can't remember last year. I was like, I'm going to sneak it back in there. It's going to be good for...
I think it was before Worlds last year, yeah.
And I think it was like 2 weeks in, and it was like, oh well,
Yeah.
all right, we tried.
Never mind.
Shoot.
Because yeah, like
Yeah,
I
no,
think it's a
I'm-
great builder for upper back tightness and strength. So I always felt myself it was good for me. So I thought I'd try and sneak it back into Rhea's programming. But yeah, I knew in the back of my head I was like, a little worried about this.
I think I'm probably overly opinionated in my distaste for it. But
I think you're the only one here that doesn't like it.
you do a lot of straps down work, Garrett?
I program a lot of it. do as I say, not as I do.
Okay, fair enough.
Like, and I think there's value with anything, and it depends what stage the lifter is at, because doing straps up work is a skill in itself. So somebody new coming into Equip needs to develop that skill of knowing how to breathe and brace and lift with straps up. But to me, it can be a good supplement, maybe in an off season or further out from a comp, just to be able to handle a bit heavier loads while still having that hip support and feeling the rebound of the suit in the bottom.
Yeah. So real quick, if you've got somebody new in front of you right now, somebody who's like, Equip lifting looks cool, maybe they've done a little bit of raw lifting, couple raw competitions, do you have any pieces of advice or ways to approach or think about things to help somebody kind of get over some of those hurdles that I think a lot of people run into trying to get equipment figured out?
I think first of all, if you can train with somebody or a group of people who know equipment, it's a lot easier than trying to do it just on your own. I think the other sort of problem with Equipped is that people look at what people are doing at the world level instead of being like, okay, let's see what I can do for myself. Because a lot of times when people are transitioning to Equipped, the numbers that you're hitting in knee wraps or even in a suit might be lower than what your max raw is, just because you're trying to figure out the positioning and trying to figure out how do you move your body with knee wraps on and with a suit on. So that's where almost removing the weight side of it and just focusing on the technical aspect of it and allowing yourself to be new at it and trying a new sport and not thinking about it as a extension of, well, I'm just going to get stronger by putting this on. Because you will with time, but learning the gear, learning how to move in it is a skill and takes practice.
Yeah. I think that's a trap a lot of people fall into right at the gate, where they think they're going to put the equipment on and they're just automatically going to lift more weight, and then they don't, and then they're immediately discouraged. We've had a lot of people do that, where they come in, they throw a bench shirt on, they bench 10 kilos less than their raw max, they can't get it to a two board, and then they never put a shirt on again.
Terrible. Yeah.
And it's just a miserable experience.
I think we got to stop starting people in bench shirts. I think that is the most unintuitive, hard to use piece of equipment that exists. I think if you want somebody to try something and be stoked about it, squat suit or deadlift suit. But again, that's my own bias, and I think it depends on the lifter, right? If you're Rhea and you're a great raw bencher, then you get into a bench shirt, or Danielle getting into a bench shirt, she loves it, But yeah, I think maybe the first piece of equipment you use should be something you're good at already.
And I think it needs to be something that's not a crazy tight piece of equipment. Because I think that's the other trap too, that a lot of Equip lifters get into is, hey, you want to do Equip? Here, put this suit on. This is the perfect comp fit suit that you're going to put on, and it's going to take you half an hour to put it on and take it off. And it's just an uncomfortable experience. Whereas if they sized up one or two sizes and put on something looser, was able to move in it, yeah, they might not quite hit that maximum number that they can that day, but it would be a more positive experience and make them more likely to come back to it and then slowly get in a tighter suit, take in that suit. There's a lot of alterations you can do to a looser fitting suit to make it tighter without even having to get a new suit.
I think something people do that discourages people a lot from lifting is the first time they get their knees wrapped, the person wrapping their knees takes it as a badge of honor to absolutely just destroy their knees for no reason. I think that's something we can probably get away from as well, is give them a baby wrap, back it off a few revs, let them just feel a little bit of support, and just that's enough. You don't need to take their whole knee off and they can't even move at all. Just baby wrap. Make it fun.
Absolutely. And I think it's tough too, because people come into it and they're like, I want to be wrapped as absolutely hard as you can, right? They have the people coming in that are like, I might be interested in this. They've seen you like cringing, getting your knees wrapped, and they're like, I want to experience that. So I think it's a lot of times comes from both sides. But yeah, I think in a way we need to be kinder to new people coming into the sport to try and make it a more positive long-term experience.
Yeah, I would agree.
I fully agree with that.
Yeah, Garrett, did you want to?
Oh,
You had some
yeah,
questions
I
about the
have
World
some
Games
questions actually.
specifically.
So obviously, World Games in China. You walked away with another win. Obviously, there were some scares. So bench. I want to talk about bench. I want to know what was going through your head. And like obviously, bench was a high pressure round of lifting. What was going through your head? How were you able to maintain composure? Because as someone else who also has missed some benches in his day, what strategies do you have to like take it one lift at a time, or maintain that composure lift to lift, and not let a missed opener or a missed second attempt kind of weigh on you a little
Or
too
missed
heavy?
third attempt.
Missed third attempt as well.
So I guess World Games specifically, I was super confident in my opener. Warm-ups had felt perfect. And I had done my opener, I don't know how many times in training leading into the World Games. So I missed my opener. It was kind of like, I miss my opener sometimes. That's the reality of it. I just caught it funny, and I'll correct it on my second. So I was still super confident going out on my second, and sort of like, I use the analogy of like goldfish memory, because not overthinking what I did on my opener, because I know how to bench press. I've benched over 200. I benched 210, I don't know, dozens of, if not hundreds of times. So just forgetting about that first one, going out in the second one just with lots of confidence again, trying to just bench like I know how. Coming off after the second bench, that was the first time I've missed my opener and my second in any lift. So that was a new experience. I think I was trying to do the same thing though, just being like, okay, you know how to do this, Rhaea. I remember, I think I changed where I was sitting, because that might be affecting where how things are going, you know. Psychologically, I think I moved over closer to like the far end in a railing. And I remember Ryan coming and sitting beside me, and like he didn't say anything. He just moved a chair and then was like right by the barrier. And something happened on the other side of the barrier. I don't know if you remember that, Ryan. Somebody dropped something or something. And I remember like laughing about that and just being like, well, we'll see what happens on this third one. So yeah, again, it was just like a not stress about it. Try and just go out and do your thing. Obviously, the third one didn't go as well either. And at that point in time, seeing those two red lights, it was like, well, I know there's still a chance that the jury could overturn it. I walked out behind the platform. I was looking up in a wall and starting to process like, okay, this was supposed to be like the World Games where it was a great experience, and things went close to plan. This was not ever in the plans. And I was just starting to process how I was going to deal with this, what that looked like. When the announcement came on that it had been overturned, I think my brother hit me in the back and was like, all right, let's go. It's time to deadlift. So as I'm like starting to cry, I'm sprinting down the long hallway to the warm-up room to take my bench shirt off to try and deadlift, and then just sort of regroup for deadlift as best I could. So I had my brother and Stinn and Shane there. And yeah, I felt like it was very quiet, and they were all just like, here's your next thing. Here's your sock. Put your sock on for deadlifts. Here's your shoe. Put your shoe on. And it was just very much like, we're not talking about what just happened. It's in the past now, and you're going to go focus on deadlifts. So long story short, to answer what I think your question was, I think just like taking everything segment by segment, So I did my opener, missed it. Okay, it's done. Now we're going to try and improve it on the second, and not like catastrophizing. I wasn't thinking about, well, what happens if I bomb? What happens if I miss my third? It was just, I know how to do this. So trying to take that confidence and just go execute, which I didn't do super well that day, but that's the reality of our sport.
That is equipped lifting sometimes. So yeah, you mentioned about just going into deads. So obviously deads was pretty at least from the audience. Like Bryce and myself were in the audience. Obviously you have Ryan and Shane standing back there. Deads became a fairly stressful component as well after your second. Do you want to tell everyone your super secret technique to coming back on your third? What you changed between the second and third?
Yeah, you just flip your grip. Like, it's not a problem.
Which I think is crazy. Just absolutely insane to me.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if I knew this.
It's harder for you to grip race.
Just
Yeah,
go
so
double
for those,
Double underhand.
Yeah, double underhand hook grip.
for those listening to why I think it's crazy, Rhea missed her second deadlift on grip at the top. And then the solution is just do the exact opposite grip and just go out, go up 2.5 kilos, make the lift, win World Games.
It was
So
a
what's
5 kilo jump from second to third.
it was a 5 kilo
212
jump.
to
Yes,
217.
212 to 217. My apologies. I was shorting you there. So that just seems like such a gamer move to just have the confidence to, like, that's insane to me. Like I'm changing nothing. I'm doing the exact same thing every time. My brain cannot handle the idea of like, oh, I'm just gonna do the opposite. Like,
So, in fairness, I was training that way. Since like, I want to say, I think it was 2021 or 2022. I was presenting at an Iron Sisters strength camp with Rhaea T, and she talked about flipping her grip. And all of us other coaches looked at her and were like, "You do what?" And she's like, "Yeah, I flip my grip all the time. Like, I do a set this way, and then I do a set this way." And since then, I've been playing around with flipping back and forth. So most of the training cycles before World Games, like some of my heavy sets, I would pull one way, some I would pull the other way. My primary way that I pulled for 20 some years is with my left hand under, and that's like the way I'm more confident in. But in training leading up to World Games, once or twice my grip had slipped in training that way, but it had never done it the other way. So coming off after my second, like I knew strength was there and it was just falling at the top. So like I said to Ryan pretty confidently, like, it's fine. I was just losing my grip. I'll flip it. And I didn't think anything of it. And I knew that the grip opposite would, or I figured it should be fine. So it's one of those, I guess looking back on it now, I was preparing for that moment in the training leading up to it by flipping my grip. So it was a relatively natural thing for me based on what I had been doing in training. But yeah, I get that 99% of athletes aren't pulling with alternating grip throughout training. But like if you think of it from a development perspective, like having one hand supinated and one hand not is going to change the structures all the way up the chain. And that's where hook grip is obviously maybe a superior grip, but it hurts too much. I tried it for a while and I just couldn't handle the pain.
I think the issue is that people don't get heavy enough with it. Because I would much rather hook grip like 370 or 380 than 240 and 250. I feel like those weights feel infinitely worse.
I think I got up to like 190 and I did it and I was like, nope, I'm done.
She did it all raw, and then she put her suit on and tried to do her first single with it, and she was like, nope, no hook grip.
Because I feel like you get to a point where it's like with 250 or whatever, like, and I don't know, maybe use percentages to make it more relatable, but like, 60 to 80%, there's like not enough of you engaged. So you end up like feeling and thinking more about how your thumbs feel. But when you get up to like 90+%, like you can't think about your thumbs. You got to think about the lift. So like it probably hurts, but like, I don't know. I don't remember. I got to think about trying to like keep my back position locked in and make sure I'm, locking out and all that kind of stuff. It's just set it and forget it. But yeah, I have to try some double underhand, I think.
Yep.
And
Just flip it and you'll be
That's
fine.
how Bryce tears both biceps.
Both of them right off.
Oh no. Well, I thought that was one of the more interesting things that you said after winning World Games, when you said that my jaw was on the floor for a little while there.
Gamer move. Yeah.
And it was a 2.5 kilo PR deadlift at the time too.
Which you have PR'd again since then.
Yes. And it was the first time I've ever pulled for the win and not stood in the back room being like, please, can this be my day?
I'm going to make a little shameless plug for a second, because we made a 2-part documentary about World Games and before and after. So if anyone's interested in more of the World Games story and leading up to it and the follow-up after it, it's on the Inner Strength Products YouTube. I think it's called, I don't know what it's called. There's 2 videos. But,
It will
and I
be
put a lot of work
linked
into them, so go watch those.
They're very good.
somewhere. They were enjoyable videos. I like those a lot.
Do you want to go into the equipment check section then? Is that
Sure.
anything else you want to cover? It used to be called, I don't know what it's called.
I think we used to call it
Gearhead. Yeah, I liked equipment check, so I'll put that in there. It sounded
Equipment
better.
check is better.
I think that was way better. So we'll just go through and talk to you about some, like, what you wear, what you prefer. Is your gear currently stock or custom?
Most of it is stock. My bench shirt would be the exception. That my bench shirt is a size 37, which technically isn't stock because only even numbers are stock.
Right.
But it's 37 across the board. And then I take it in. So stock with an asterisk because everything has been taken in.
Mm-hmm.
So what's, sorry?
Sorry, when you say everything's taken in, you're taking the sleeves, and obviously, are you making any other alterations to it, or?
To the bench shirt?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Bench shirt is just sleeves.
Okay.
I don't know how some people take in, but I just take in like the seam of the sleeve.
I've seen people try and take in the chest plate, and it just goes horrible every time.
Yeah.
It just explodes.
Not
Don't
right.
do
Yeah.
that.
No.
It's too much tension. Don't do it.
Yeah, I wouldn't advise.
Are you doing anything cool with your sleeves? Are you doing anything that you feel is unique to your sleeves?
I was gonna say the thread color gets alternated if I take it in more and more sometimes, so then it gets a nice rainbow in it.
It gets prettier?
Yeah. But that's compliments of my mom, because my mom does all my alterations. I don't do my alterations.
I've seen those seams. They are impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's done a few suits over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, no, I don't think I do anything fancy, because that's what I've been doing for, I don't know,
Forever.
5+ years. I don't take in the cuffs because I find I struggle to get my sleeves off to begin with. And if I take in the cuff, it's just so much pressure at that point. So I'd rather the cuff be a little bit looser and then it be a little bit tighter, a little bit up the chain. So I start just above the cuff and then do a little arc. But I don't go up to the armpit either, because I found that will also flow more often.
And then your squat suit is stock as well?
Yes. It's stock with the hips and straps taken in.
Okay.
And what
And then-
size?
38.
And then I guess
38
your
Super Centurion.
deadlift suit, you're in an Inzer, I believe, right?
Yeah, I've been wearing a Inzer Fusion. And
And-
size 32 with the straps taken in.
And then I guess bench, you were a low cut. You're not in a low cut anymore, are you?
I have never been in a low
It wasn't
cut.
a low cut. It was just a
No.
super.
Just non-low cut Super Katana.
Okay.
I tried to make the low cut work for a long time, probably like 2017, 2018, and just couldn't touch anything in it. So stopped using it because I was having success in the not low cut. I recently did just get a new low cut shirt, so it's sitting on my shelf being like, maybe you want to try me again. So we'll see what next few months bring.
And then for wraps, you're using the SPD comp wraps,
Yeah.
and those are usually wrapped by Ryan.
I can't hear Garrett anymore. Can anybody else hear him?
Oh, I
I
can
can
still
still
hear.
hear Garrett.
Oh, Garrett disappeared for me. Sorry. Ignore
Can you
me.
hear me?
Yeah,
Is he
I can
back?
now. Yeah.
Okay.
He's back.
Uh, so with your knees being wrapped, Ryan, I believe you're the one normally wrapping. Are you doing anything unique? Oh no, you're not wrapping anymore. Sorry.
Yeah, Ryan hasn't wrapped me since his elbow started getting bad. Typically, my brother has wrapped me. My brother wrapped me at World Games and Worlds, and then Noah Villard, a guy from Moose Jaw here, wrapped me at Nationals. He was there spotting and loading and had come in a bunch of times leading into Nationals to help that way. But like, I think I wrap pretty basic, a bit of a crisscross and weave and tuck. I don't even know how many revolutions we get on my knees. We just get the right amount of revolutions on my knees, and that's it. Like, I don't think Fowler knows. I don't think Stinn knows. I don't think Noah could tell me how many wraps we get. It's sometimes by feel, because depending on which pair of comp wraps I'm using, I've got a couple of pairs that have been more broken in, sort of stretchier, and that sort of thing. So some of it's dependent on the wrap itself. And yeah, it's a lot by feel. I'm not like, we need to get 7 revolutions on this one. I truly have no idea.
But that's how many you get. 7 on the comp wraps usually. On the good pair.
That's what I would have guessed, but yeah.
It's usually 4 up.
Subconsciously, I'm counting.
Cool.
And then flats or heels, the last question we have. Obviously, this means for squats, because probably not for deadlifts.
Typically heels for squats, except for since
Typically?
Nationals, I've been squatting in flats, but I've only been doing raw. So we'll see what happens when I put gear back on, whether I go back to heels or flats. It's one of those things I flip-flop a lot back and forth over the years. Usually when I'm trying to make my squat progress or change, lots of times I've changed footwear, and whether it's psychologically or it actually helps, it's helped. So yeah, typically heels, but we'll see.
Are we going to see you at the next Worlds?
Yeah.
Maybe swap shoes before a third attempt?
No, I don't recommend that. Okay. It needs a full training cycle for heels.
Okay. Just checking.
But you never know, right? Like, if you're doing flats and then you weren't hitting depth, maybe swap the heels on the third, and we could be onto something here, Bryce.
That's
Let me throw
a secret technique.
A very random old quote for people. Tom Keane in 2009 at the World Games, opening 2 first benches. I think he was wearing his squat shoes, I think, and his foot kept slipping. So he changed to his deadlift shoes, I think, for his third attempt, and got his third bench. So it happens.
Yeah.
Those are old facts I'll throw out now and then. It could be the opposite. It could have been like
Slipping on
heeled
the
shoes
bench,
first,
yeah,
and then, or it could have been flats first, then heels. I can't remember, but I know he flipped for his third.
Fair enough.
I'm gonna throw one more question.
You've got to be adaptable as an athlete.
So I've got a few viewer questions that have come in from my Instagram. I don't know if anyone else got any to theirs.
Mine was shared to yours, so you would have got mine.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how to use Instagram.
So first question is, do you ever just do knee wrap squats without a suit, or do you always have full gear?
Sometimes, yes, I will do knee wrap squats.
And do you like them
without a suit? I like them in the sense that it teaches me to use the wrap more. Because I find when I'm in the suit, like, there's so much pressure from the suit. Sometimes I might squat slower in the suit, so I don't think about like rebounding through the wrap more. So when I've had training cycles where I've done, like, usually it would be like a 4-week block of just knee wraps before doing knee wraps and a suit. I feel like I've relearned to use the wraps better than when I just transitioned straight into the gear, the full suit.
I think before World Games, we had your secondary squat day was knee wrap squats, and your primary was full gear, I think, if I remember correctly.
That might be correct, yeah.
What was your favorite World Games?
Oh. They all have special spots in my memories, but I think 2009 would probably be my favorite, partly because I feel like we didn't know what we were getting into. That was a weird one because there had been no real talk of it at '08 Worlds, and then all of a sudden at the banquet, they were announcing, here's the team, here's the people who made it to the World Games. And they said my name, and I was like, we don't know what this is. What is this? So I didn't really know what to expect. And it was in Taiwan, the first time being at a big multi-sport event. We got to walk into the closing ceremonies, which was totally unexpected to be walking into a full stadium of screaming people. So yeah, probably 2009.
Okay. Next would be, what is your approach to managing pain or training through pain?
Ooh. Training through pain, I think I try not to. I think I do a lot of modifying of my training when pain does flare up. Sometimes you just have to push through. Like the one thing that I would say that I probably pushed through over the last few years is how my elbow feels when I'm squatting. My elbow just gets stuck when I'm in low bar position, and basically I can't get out from under the bar. So like you watch me really slow to get out from under the bar, because as it gets heavier, it just gets more and more stuck. I've tried a bunch of different things and haven't really been able to figure out what's causing it, what helps it. Over the years, the last couple of years, it's been getting better, so it's not at its absolute worst. But usually, I'll try and like treat the problem. So I'll do a lot of like massage, rehab-y type stuff as needed, depending on what's going on. And then training just gets modified to movements that I can do that are more in the pain-free range. So that's where when people will ask me a lot about like, have you been injured? A lot of times my answer is like, well, no, because I almost don't view it as injury, because it's just like something's going on in this part of my body. My training needs to be modified in this sense. Like I'm not stopping training because I'm injured. I'm just modifying the movements that I'm doing to accommodate whatever's going on.
Yeah. And it also sounds like it's mostly been like kind of like overuse, like aches and pains and things cropping up. You never had like a big like acute injury, like something tore or something tweaked real bad on like a specific rep or anything like that, or have you?
For sure I have. I haven't had any tears that I'm aware of. But there's been, I feel like a lot of times over the years where like I've done a rep and been like, something happened in my back on that rep. So usually that day will get shut down, and then it just goes into like pain management, body management to try and fix whatever is going on, whether that's through massage, chiro, that sort of thing, self-treatment, mobility stuff, to try and first of all get the body out of that sort of acute issue, and then figure out what you're dealing with and get back to training in whatever capacity you can.
Yeah.
Top 3 tips for a better equipped bench that aren't just don't bend your elbows.
We'll be taking notes.
Top 3. I'll see if I can come up with 3. I think the first one is to be willing to fail. Because in the time of my bench starting to get really good, going from like that 150 range to that 200 range, I cannot tell you how many sessions I dumped the bar of my chest to my stomach, my chest to my stomach, maybe had one half decent touch that might have got 2 white lights. So I think a lot of experimenting and be willing to fail would be one piece of advice. And then with that comes like making sure you're setting your safeties appropriately, having a spotting crew around you to keep you safe so that when you do dump, it's not a catastrophe. It's just like, okay, pick it up off me, put it in the rack. And I feel like we've gotten to the point, especially in that time frame, where like my training partners, like nobody even flinched when I dumped it. It was just like, catch it, pull it into the rack. She's fine. We walk away. So that would be one. I think the second one would be to think about it like a different movement. Don't think about it like a raw bench, because the movements are so different. So don't, whatever cues you use for a raw bench might not work for equipped. So trying to find those new cues that are specific for equipped. And then third one would be probably just like getting used to handling the heavier weights in your hands. So whether that's through some extra board work, like reverse band stuff, regular bands, just to get that confidence of holding the weight in your hand. Because especially as you progress with the shirt, you're obviously going to be holding weights that are more than you've ever lifted before, especially raw. So just getting that confidence of, yeah, I can hold this weight out here, no problem. And doing it even to like a super high board could be beneficial for somebody new. That's not something that I do at this point in time, but I think it can be advantageous for a newer equipped lifter.
Sweet.
Okay, and one of the ones I'd have in there, do you think the inclusion of raw powerlifting at the World Games level will bring more eyes to equipped lifting? I know we personally tried to bully a lot of people at the World Games to getting into equipped lifting, so including Bryce
It worked.
and Danielle and
It's hard to say if it will bring more eyes to equipped lifting, but I think especially the first year, like last year, equipped lifters knew the prestige of the World Games. They knew that they wanted to be there and wanted to go. Whereas I feel like classic lifters didn't have that same sense of, I want to be there. It was like, oh, this is another meet. It's not a world. There's no money on the table. Like, and it's maybe one I skip. I think that will change. And I think in turn, the classic lifters that were there who want to get to the next one, if it's like, hey, I might have a better shot making the equipped team versus the classic team, I think we might have more transitioning to equipped that way with the goal of making it to the next World Games. But I don't know that it being at World, being classic being there, I don't know if it will have an effect.
Yeah. I think that's probably makes a lot of sense. And yeah, like I said, I was, one of the biggest reasons I got back into equipment was because of the World Games, getting back into that environment and seeing the lifting at that level and being around it and being like so immersed in it again, and talking to a lot of people I knew from equipped lifting from years and years ago, and a couple conversations with people just being like, hey, would you ever get back in equipment? And I was like, well, I just might. So I think it will get more raw lifters into equipment. I don't know about like eyes on things or whatever, but I think it will expose more raw lifters to more equipped lifting and bridge that gap a little bit more, and maybe pique some more curiosity around equipped for people who are already kind of immersed in raw lifting.
For sure. It could be too, like for Canadians, our nationals is all combined. So a raw lifter at our nationals might still see some equipped lifting, but for a lot of countries, they're separate events. So there is not that crossover. So it could be for some elite level classic lifters, like they've not had the exposure to equipped because either there's not equipped in their country or they're not competing in the same events. So from that aspect, there could be an advantage for equipped there as well.
Yeah, like that's definitely true. Any more exposure we can get is good, I think. But we do have that exposure at our nationals, so that helps. Go ahead.
I have a question that follows up off of that. Do you have a raw lifter you would like to see in equipment?
The immediate thought was Brittany.
She doesn't count. She's
Again?
done an equipped meet now.
Yeah, she didn't
She's
equip
done
any.
equipped meet, but
Post
she
the
hasn't
total.
actually pushed her equipped numbers. And I don't know what that would look like for her because she's obviously crazy strong raw. If she put on a little bit of gear, I think she could come to equipped worlds and probably be fighting for a podium for sure, potentially for top spot. But I think seeing her, if she took 2 years to really dive into equipped and focus only on equipped, she would be one I would like to see what would be possible, because I think she would be hitting numbers that nobody ever thought anybody would do in equipped.
Yeah.
But I don't know that that's realistic with how good she is classic and classic goals. I don't think that necessarily aligns.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
I don't
that's
think
a
it's
really
out of the
good
question.
I mean, to her credit, most years she could go to equipped worlds, lift raw, and still win. So
There's that.
Yes.
But I would like to see it just because of the
Crazy potential.
yeah, and also I just want to see her complain more. So I want to see her have the ability to complain about tight knee wraps and stuff. Because I did send her a bunch of my suits, and she's like, they don't fit me. They don't fit. They're so tight. I'm like, you didn't even try. Like, there's no way.
Her ability to complain may actually outshine her ability to perform on the platform, actually.
Hey, she tried really hard in that bench shirt.
She did.
That
She did
third
try
attempt where
really
she
hard
got
in
into a
nationals.
shirt.
Yeah, and then immediately
Was-
threw it into the rack off the press.
I mean, yeah, it was a fight to get that touch, but she stuck with it all
Yeah,
the way,
committed.
which I commend her for a great deal.
Absolutely. I think it's gonna be hard for her to dual focus when there's
Yeah,
still so
I think
much
for anybody
she can
it's-
achieve
Yeah.
in classic. Not to end on like a potentially dark point, but to just because I think it might help some people. What if you looking back, could you identify as like potentially the lowest point or one of the lowest points of your lifting career? How did you kind of get through it, and what maybe did you learn from it?
Oh, you should have given me time to think about this one. What comes to mind right away is Classic Worlds 2015, I believe, in Finland. Is that the right year?
There's so many competitions on here.
Yes, that's right.
I think it was then. I had been struggling with a weird knee thing where, again, I couldn't really squat. Maybe it's related to what I just dealt with recently. But that one, I finished off the podium, I believe, or I finished in third.
Fourth.
I finished fourth. I finished off the podium. I felt like I didn't have a great day. Life had been really busy outside of powerlifting. I'd been going to school, sort of pivoting careers at that time. And so I wasn't maybe able to focus on lifting as much. So then things were just compounding, like injury wise and just how body was feeling. So I know that was sort of a low point. I remember being very upset at how I performed after that competition. But then I remember like coming home, and again, it's back to the drawing board, trying to figure out what the issues are and sort of moving ahead into the next competition and the next set of goals. So through that time, like 15, 16, that was when 16, 17 was when I started working with Blaine. And that was, again, just probably like 15, 16 was sort of a lull, I would say, of like, I was going through the motions. I was doing competitions, but maybe wasn't focused. So then just the change of going from working with somebody that I knew really well and having Ryan coach me to starting to work with Blaine, and just that change in sort of stimulus was very good for me, both physically and mentally, because it changed sort of how I was approaching lifting and how I was approaching training. And then it triggered some new strength gains, and just let me push to numbers that I really never thought I was possible of doing.
Cool. And then what's one highlight of your lifting career so far? Or what's the biggest highlight, if you can think of one? So we can end on a more positive note.
I would say probably, like, this is a cheesy answer, but just everything that's given me. Given that I work in the sport, I met you through the sport. Everything in my life, like if I remove powerlifting from my life, I really don't know where I would be in this world. So just the opportunities it's given me, the connections it's made for me, and everything that it's given me up until this point in my life, the opportunities. I know it's not a specific moment, but it's one of those, like, it's hard to disconnect who Rhaea is powerlifter and who Rhaea is without powerlifting, because it doesn't exist.
My takeaway from that answer is it gave you Ryan.
Cute.
All right. Any other questions, guys? I think we've.
No, we touched on a lot of really good stuff.
I think that's good.
All right, Rhaea. Thanks so much for joining us and being our first guest on this new version of the podcast. And thanks for sharing with us. And yeah, if anyone wants to find you, where's the best place to find you?
Let's say Instagram at Rhaea Stinn, no dot.
Just search for Rhaea Stinn. You'll probably find something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she will come up.
Yeah.
she'll probably be there.
I'll be somewhere.
All
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank
I
you
look
so much,
forward to
Rhaea.
hearing what this season sounds like.
Me too.
Same.
We'll see.
All
Bye,
right.
everybody.
Bye, Rhaea.
Bye.
Bye, Rhaea.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us for our interview with my wife, Rhaea Stinn. I think it was good. Lots of information there. Hopefully something useful to you, if not useful, at least entertaining. One thing that we've been hit up quite a bit by is listeners wanting the Equip Bruce Tired t-shirt. We are happy to say that Calgary Barbell has re-released that. Bryce, where can people find that shirt?
You can go to calgarybarbell.shop and it should be in there.
So all of you that have inundated my DMs with requests for the t-shirt, you can hit it up there and order yourself a t-shirt. And yeah, I think that wraps up our first episode with a guest, and we'll try and do, I think we're kind of looking at once every 2 weeks for a podcast here. So that'll kind of be our release schedule. So we'll try and do this every 2 weeks, permitting our own schedules, but we'll do our best to maintain that. If you have any requests for guests, feel free to hit us up on Instagram. But otherwise, I think it was a good second episode, I guess. Anything to add, guys?
No, I think that's it. Obviously, it
all.
was great to chat with Rhaea, and hopefully, yeah, one of the things we can do with this podcast is to get more people interested in equip lifting, and for the people who are interested in it, give you something to listen to on a long drive or cardio, I guess, if people are doing that these days.
That's my life. Perfect. And I hope that this episode, quality-wise, has been a step up. We kind of had a hiccup doing the first episode with suddenly realizing we couldn't record the way we were doing it, so we did like a quick and dirty record on the first one. So hopefully we found something here that's a little better and higher quality. I listened to our first episode semi-begrudgingly as Ray was listening to it, and I was cringing quite a bit trying to get through it, but hopefully this is a little better.
One episode at a time.
We'll get better every time, just like training.
Yep.
All right, thanks everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.